Remainder of this chapter, unless we strategically move people, like if there's a small group, we might break another small group up to fill in some groups. We also often will have some kids absent. So as people are sick with fall or winter, whatever happens, the crud, I like to call it, as fall and winter happen, the crud happens more and more, that cold or flu or whatnot. We'll move some people around on different days, but in general, this is going to be your team. Now, if you guys are the only two queens right now, we'll probably break you up, at least for today. But if we get more people back, we might have you come back together. So we have a whole 4 there. You guys have a lot of stuff. Is there at least 3 people there? Did somebody head out to the restroom? Right. 3. You got 4 here, or only 3? Ella was also there. Only 3 here. Let's go ahead and have you guys go to any of the tables of 3. So there, or there. Any of those. Just choose a group. We don't want a group of 2. It'd be too small. Then let's dive in to problem 242. So you guys, as your groups, can go ahead and crack open your toolkit to page 18. What do we want to make sure we do every day with our toolkit? And the math book is page 88, which I thought was funny since both of these end in 8. I just thought that was interesting. What do I make sure our toolkit has? Date and header. So our date today, 9 September 26th. Good work knowing what day is today. And our topic is 2.2.2. We are adding. Now here's a trick. With me saying I want to make your life easier. Rational numbers are integers. So we're just going to say adding rationals will be our header. Adding rationals. And if you want, you could say rational numbers, but just saying adding rationals, pretty much shorthand is what we're doing. What do you have? We need to have you actually go with a 3 group. So you can either join Kate. Yeah, go ahead and join Kate and Monica. I think we have a couple people sick today because we really should have only 2 in here. Penelope's not here. Emily's not here. So we might have to do a little bit of interesting moving around as we get everybody back here. We'll figure that out as we go. So right now, please write down your current group. So let's just say chapter 2 group or team. Let's go ahead and start using team a bit more. And make sure you get the other 3 people at your table groupings. A nice trick is most people's names are on their books, or if you're not quite 100% sure, just ask them. Should be on their books, their binders, everything. But if you can't remember somebody at your team, please ask them. Yeah, and a nice way to avoid saying I forget your name is to say, how do you spell your name again? Because then they're going to tell you what their name is. So like, oh, how do you spell your name? Oh, Kate. K-A. All right, dive into 242. Let's see what work we can start on. Once you write down your teammates' names, dive into 242.
Find length of the checkout of each expression for Brooklyn's Fuller starts to stop at point A and has an end at point B. Assume the numbers represent lengths in the case.
Oh, we need to talk about my smart work sometime too. I had all kinds of issues between, I got it working this morning, but it was all screwed up yesterday. Remember, and as you're discussing as your groups, this is your goal. How do we solve these problems the easiest way possible? And we don't need to use calculators, but how do we solve them the easiest way possible? At 242 together. When we talk about solving things easily, and we're working with positives and negatives, before I get out the cards, we'll take volunteers. Anybody have a good idea for how we can easily join up positive and negative numbers? Any volunteers want to be bold this morning? Because we want to try to kick us in the right direction. Then I'll let you guys go again, but let's look at A together. No volunteers. For A, how could I do this the easiest way possible? Yeah.
You add the 8 plus the 2 and then minus 3.
Ooh, I could join up all my positives and then deal with the negatives. So I kind of, it's sort of like terms, except they're all like terms. They all can be combined. But if I take just my positives first, how much positive do we have? 10, and then 3 negative leaves me with 7. Now another way that we can do this.
I added, I did 8 minus 3 plus 2.
8 minus 3 plus 2. Now one way I can think about that 8 minus 3 is, well, 8 I can really think of as 5 and 3. Now why would I think of 8 as 5 and 3? What, Aubrey? And what about, why did I break it up like that? I could break it up 4 plus 4. 8, when I turn it into a 5 and a 3, and then I look at the negative 3, what happens with a positive 3 and a negative 3? And you can't remember what they're called, check in your math notes box. What happens if I have 3 and I take 3 away? There's nothing, right? There's nothing there. So now I can look at these guys together and say, well, that's nothing. And I end up with, sorry, this is a 2. I wrote that wrong. This was a 2. And I also end up with 7. So what we're really looking to do here is create pairs of additive inverses. So if you can't remember that word, please write that down just to help put it in your memory. Additive inverses sum to 0. I'm going to give you one more example of this and then release you for the last 4. So in B, now remember that we have our superheroes and our supervillains, right? Our positive guys are our superheroes, and our negative guys are our supervillains. So when you look at situation B, who do you think is going to win, our superheroes or our supervillains? Superheroes, why do you say that? There's a whole lot more positive value than there is negative. But when we look at how much will they win by, you ever heard the phrase take on somebody your own size or pick on somebody your own size? Yeah, so this 12.25 superhero comes walking in all big and buff and jacked up, and he looks at the negative 1.75 and he's like, you're not even worth my time. Now, that big jacked up superhero is actually, anyone watch Power Rangers? No. It's a merge of smaller superheroes. So that 12.25 says, I'll break off a little piece to take you on. And the 7.5 says, wait, I can do that too. I don't really want to fight him, but I'll break off a little piece. Here's how we're going to rewrite this, and I'm going to give myself some more screen. So we're going to take 12.25. I don't like that because it's partial. Don't love it. I still like it, just don't love it. Negative 1.75. What I want to try to do is make a positive 1.75 by breaking these pieces up. So what if I just snatch the 0.25 off of here, that's a positive, and the 0.5 off of here, what does that compensate? Alex?
0.75.
The negative 0.75, so what else do I need? A 1, right? So, if we rewrite this as, I don't know, 11 plus 1.25 plus 0.5 plus 7, please take a second to write this down, then we'll talk about what we just did. And then still that negative 1.75. So we should have really written 0.5. My bad. Now, you can just say, well, there's a little side battle going on. This positive 1.75 and that negative 1.75, because they're additive inverses, they will. There's like 4 people whispering it, but you're not bold. I'll get off cards. It's okay, I know it's early. Yeah.
Like 0?
It makes 0. So this 11 didn't fight with anybody. This 7 didn't fight with anybody. What are we left with? Just 18. So that's one way, without a calculator, break up your numbers, get them to level out with each other or fight somebody their own size, and then just look at what's left, what didn't get destroyed or canceled out. Try that technique with C, D, E, and F any way that you can. Try that technique of breaking up values to merge them into 0 pairs.
I would say Iron, get another one for now. Iron, get another one.
Talk with your teammates if you can't figure that out. Sorry, you guys haven't really started talking yet, so I don't really feel like I'm interrupting. Here's the other way we could have done that, right? Add your positive values together first. 12.25, 7.5, I make 19.75, right? We can add positives pretty easily. Then break up the 19.75 to make those additive inverses. Those equal 0, and I'm left with 18. That's another way we could have done that. So if you want to take the merge your positives, merge your negatives first, and then break them up, that's also a great idea. So talk with each other, try to solve these out. Give you, what do we want to say? You think 4 minutes? A minute apiece? Let's try 4 minutes. We'll check in then. See, the book has that smartboard file, but I don't love it. Just how it's formatted. Yeah. But I don't like I would rather. stack negatives. Yeah, so if you go into, if you're ever looking for it, when you start the chapter in the opening, if you go to the teacher notes, it's right there. But I don't know, I kind of like my own file better, where I'm possessive about things.
No.
So C was easier than? Okay. That's what we're looking for. You want to find where we can break up the bigger value to make opposites. So what's the smaller value here? One closer to 0. Negative 1 1/4, right? So I need to figure out how to break my 8 1/2 to get a positive 1 1/4 out of it. So what do we want to do with the fractions before I can start combining fractions? C. What's that thing? Ah, okay. There you go. You're on the right track. How are we doing? We're on E already. Any issues? Any questions? We finding those opposites, those additive inverses? You skipped it. So Alex turned it around. He made it the positive 8, and he made it a decimal. So you just straight up did the subtraction. What's another way? So if we want to think about additive inverses. So if Alex wrote, he made this 8.5 minus 1.25. But if we still look at it with the negative first, in decimal form, negative 1.25, what positive do I need to cancel out the negative? 1.25, right? If I break 8.5 into 1.25 and, well, what's left over then? If I took 1 away and I took a 0.25, I have 7.25, right? If I know that these are opposites, I got my answer. So try to break things up to find those additive inverses. Don't just do subtraction. You want to find those additive inverses. Guys, the skill we're practicing here, I know that we could do addition or subtraction. The skill we're trying to practice is break values apart to find additive inverses. So you're still working, keep working, totally fine. But I'm going to start calling on people to see who can help me. So Nathan, in C, if we combine the negatives first, or well, how did you guys start? Did you combine the negatives or did you go a different route? How did you guys group? Or did we jump past this one, or? You added up the negatives. So what did we get? How much total negative? 5.1, right? So then how much positive do I need to cancel out the negative? So let me throw this question elsewhere. Kate, if I have a negative 5.1, how much positive do I need to make it 0? These questions seem awkwardly asked, but once we do this a little bit, you guys will start to see how this makes things easier. How much positive do I need to put with this to make it 0? What would its additive inverse be? What's the opposite of what I'm really saying? Yeah, positive 5.1. You're like, this answer seems dumb. What we're trying to do is say, if I want to make zeros, easiest thing to do is make zeros. I can make this 1 and 5.1, which was this 6.1, and then cancel out with the negative 5.1. Sorry, there's a plus in there. So these become 0, and we're left with just 1. Any questions on how we end up at 1? You okay, Nathan? In D, I saw a few different strategies. Who made it a decimal? I'm just curious, I didn't get to see everybody's. Some people like decimals better. Who switched it around and made it 8.5 minus 1 1/4? Yeah, there's a lot of ways we can do this. So if we look at D, Allie, you able to help me? If we look at D, what did you guys do? How did your group approach this?
Well, I did 1 and 1/4, negative 1 and 1.
Yeah?
Plus 4 and 1/4 plus 4 and 1/4.
Ooh, so we broke up the 8.5 into 4 and 1/4 and 4 and 1/4. We totally broke it in half. All right, what'd you do from there?
I added it all, and I got 7 and 1/4.
How did you do that? So you're right. I'm just curious how you did it.
You mean how did I get 4 and 1/4?
How did you go to 7? So you end up with, you said you end up with 7 and 1/4, right? I totally agree with that. But go ahead.
4 plus 4 is 8, and 1/4 plus 1/4 is 1/2. Minus 1 and 1/4 would be 7 and 1/4.
So you kind of went back to that step. If I went here first, I would at least, and you got the right answer, your route was totally fine, but again, a lot of right ways to get to Florida. I want to make a 0, right, with my negative 1 and 1/4 and something. So the additive inverse of my negative is just its opposite. So I break up this 4 into a 1 and 1/4 to be the opposite of that, and how much do I have left from this value? Matt, how much do I have left from 4 and 1/4 if I took out 1 and 1/4? I had 4 and 1/4, took away 1 and 1/4.
3.
Yeah, just 3. So now I could rewrite this. And I'm going to run out of space. I'm going to come down here. We have the negative 1 and 1/4. Plus, I now broke up. I have a positive 1 and 1/4, a 3, and this other 4 and 1/4. These now make 0. And what do we have left? Just the 7 and 1/4. So however your groups got there. Now E has a lot of decimal values in it. Do we need more time for E and F?
Yep.
All right, take a couple more minutes. really quiet today? Is this a little too dense? Are these problems a little hard? Do we want to jump on to 43 and come back to these if we have time? There's not much conversation. I feel like we're kind of like, these are gross. Let's work on some easier stuff first.
No, we're just with different people, that's why.
I get it, but let's try easier, then we'll come back to some hard. Look at 43 real quick. So, Cecil's tightrope is now 5 feet long. Not a very long tightrope. I could probably jump that gap, right? So let's check out A, B, and C to try to make a little bit more sense of what we're doing here. So work through those problems as your group, whether you want to have somebody in your group read it out loud or you guys read it independently. But yeah, like Annika said, we got new groups. We got to get comfortable with these people again. So let's look at 243 for a minute.
If he begins at point A, write two expressions that will make him end at point B. What did it again? Okay, so he starts at point A, so we could do
So actually, if you hang up with the next class, that would even like a couple minutes of that next accelerated second course, they're already in chapter 6. Yeah. And that's one of those lessons, and this is going to be for them. All right, now take away 3 minutes, or what is the minutes, and don't have that one. No, it's impossible. No, it's not impossible. It's just how you look at it. It seems impossible. But what does that like? What does that even mean? When we talk conceptually about positives and negatives and taking away and add, like, what does it mean to add a negative? What's the difference between subtracting a positive and adding a negative? Conceptually. Yeah. Who can give me one expression that would get us to the end of 5 feet? This is why I wanted to take a step back and get. Ooh, look at these hands now. Francesca. 2 plus 3. Sweet. Cecil took the easy way. Small step, big step. Not very creative. Annika?
1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1.
I love it. Cecil tired. He's creeping. Crap. That's my last one. Who else? Grant.
2.5 plus 2.
Ooh. He decided to split the tightrope perfectly in half and just make it 2 steps. Now, wait, remember, Cecil can go forwards and backwards. So Cecil takes a giant jump, has the momentum going forward, and goes 5 feet on his jump, 2 feet past his mark, and then he comes back to land at his mark. Why is that the same? as just moving 5 feet? Aubrey?
Because it's nothing.
What's nothing?
The 2 plus minus 2.
Why?
Because you're just adding to it and you're taking it away.
You're just adding to and then taking it away. That'd be like going up to your dad and be like, hey, can I borrow $5? And he gives you $5 and you're like, here, thanks. I got $5 and I gave it. I moved 2 feet and I moved back. Now, he moved, right? He did stuff, but he landed in the same place he would have if he just stopped after the 5. Patrick, what were you going to say?
I was thinking that if you have, every time you add one, you take away one. So I thought for C, even though we're not there yet, I thought if you add one, you have to take away one. So really, if you have 1 plus and 1 negative plus, you just take this away, just draw them out, and then you have 5 ones.
So let's move on to C then, if you want to lead us to C. So will that move, not going to read it out for you, get Cecil to point B? What do you think?
Yes, I will.
Yes. Why? Yeah. You said every time you add one and add a net. So you're kind of grouping, right? You're saying these. Come on. You got it. Do you want highlighter?
Sure.
If you want to highlight pairs, and then you can change colors. Okay. So like you're on yellow right now.
All right. So if you have 2 pairs right here, so you have a plus. You have, okay.
Hold on. I'm switching it back for you. You picked up the pen. It confused it. No. Pick up the pen. So every time you pick up the pen, you're telling the smartboard to do something.
Okay.
You're good. All right. So now keep the pen up, and now start highlighting.
All right. So say this is a group, right?
Oh, green's evil. Guys, green has the ghost. Don't trust the green marker. The ghost of Phoenix lives in the green marker. No.
For the record, there is no ghost.
That's
Or is there?
I've been here on the weekend.
All right. So if there is right here, finally, if it's a 2 plus negative 2, that means that's just 1 pair. So technically, it's nothing because you're just adding 2 and taking away 2, like Mr. Arkin said. So that means that's 1 pair. So that means it's technically still 5. And then this right here, if you add that, it's technically still 5.
So that'd be like if Cecil was like, all right, 5 feet, right? So, 2 feet back, 2 feet forward, 2 feet back. Okay, we're done. Like, that's what he did, right? One big move, forward, backwards. None of that end stuff mattered, but it was kind of cool, right? I mean, it was a nice little dance. So Cecil got to B, right? Yay, Cecil. Thank you very much, Patrick. Let's move on to 44. Dive into it with your teams. Please draw this out. It asks you to, and I'm asking you to. Please draw this out. The number line. It says go ahead and draw this number line in your notes. Ironically, all that jumping around reminded me to take my heart pill. Kind of important. It's scary how many Red Cross nurses can't spell technical. So the real, and this is where kids struggle, the real question is how do we represent, how would you show, let's talk little brother, little sister, -2 plus 3. Then how would we show 3 plus 2 or 3 plus -2? So talk with your groups. Try to draw it out first, then compare your drawings with each other. See if everybody did it the same. Also, if you're in your toolkit on page 18, it does have a number line that you could kind of draw on as well, if you would like to draw on that number line.
So for representing -2 plus 3, and then back 2, and then forward 3. Did you guys put this number line right here? So 0. We can have 2. Yeah, sure.
Anyone bold enough? You want to come up and try to draw it up here? Yeah. Very nice. -2 plus 3 lands us on the 1. Because if we had a supervillain with a power of 2 and a superhero with a power of 3, our good guy, our superhero, is going to win out by 1. Anyone want to draw 3 plus 2? Marvin, you want to come up? No? Anyone? Alex, come on. Let's give me 2 seconds. So 3 plus 2. Now, why on you're perfectly right. I'm just asking a question to the class. Why did neither of these guys start at 0? Yeah, I was waiting for more hands. All because your hands up doesn't mean like just answer. So like Alex, why didn't you start at 0?
Because on the bottom it said to start at 3.
Says start at 3. Now your move looks different than Ella's move. How did you think through your move?
I did +1, +1.
Ah, so Alex said, I'm going to take 2 steps of 1. Compared to, you can grab your seat if you want. Ella, what did you do?
I did 1 big step.
You did 1 big jump of 3. Either way is perfectly fine to think about it. I like to take the individual steps and show that out. But if we're doing multiple moves in the same routine, maybe it's easier to show a giant jump of 3 this direction than a step that way. So depending on the situation will depend on which is better. Both of these models are perfectly correct. So what about D? How would 8 plus -5 and 8 plus 5 be related or different? So take a second, talk amongst your team. How would these be similar or different? 8 plus -5 or 8 plus +5? You don't have to draw it because your number line's not big enough, but how would they be the same? How would they be different? So, Emma, how are those two things the same?
They use the same numbers.
They use the same, well, close. They both use 8 and 5, kind of, if that negative is like, stuck on the front of it. So yeah, they both use the same numbers. Anything else that is the same? Any other volunteers? Emma, did you have anything else that was the same? Where would they start?
At 8.
They would both start at 8, right? Do they both end at the same spot?
No.
No, so we've talked a bunch. Sorry, Patrick, we're skipping your card. Liam, how are they different?
Well, one of them has a negative number and one of them doesn't.
So if we're talking about like direction of change, what direction would the negative shift go? Down the number line, right? Either down or to the left or towards 0 since we're out in the positives. And then on the opposite, the contrary, the positive would move right or up. Nice. So if we look then at 45, move on into 45. We are going to talk about a new term, and we don't have very long, so please make sure that we get this in our notes. This new term that we are going to talk about is called absolute value. So, absolute value. Please write that in your toolkit or your notes, wherever you're taking notes right now. Anyone know what absolute value is? Have you talked about it in sixth? Some people talked about it in 6th grade. Some people didn't. Totally fine. Did you guys talk about it in 6th grade? Yeah, in a way. I like to nickname it the attitude adjuster, and we'll talk more on why that is later. But this, by definition, absolute value is, you had your hand up, you know?
The distance from the number to 0.
It is the distance from 0. And because other classes are already moving, we will go ahead and make that the end for today. We will pick up talking about absolute value tomorrow and why I call it the attitude adjuster. Go ahead and dive in your homework. You should be fine tonight, guys. Thank you very much. Yeah, be careful. They throw stuff back there.
That was my fault.
Have you done that like every time you've been in my class? You're throwing seats at kids?